What is going on, Birdland? Stephen Heckman here with the Final Strike Podcast. Episode 13 is underway, and it comes on the heels of some heartbreaking news for the Baltimore Orioles, as not only do we lose two starting pitchers, we've lost them for the year. John Means and Tyler Wells, it was announced, will both have UCL surgeries. It's not said yet if they're full reconstructive Tommy John surgeries or just a procedure on the UCL, but both of them are gone for the season. Unfortunately, John Means, who has only made 10 starts since 2021, will finish this year with a 267 ERA. Actually, was it 267? Let's see. 261 ERA, I apologize. And Tyler Wells, who made 3 starts this year, will finish the year with a 587 ERA. John Means' career with the Baltimore Orioles is more than likely over, as he is a free agent at the end of the year. At age 31, I do not see a reason for him to be brought back to the Baltimore Orioles. So we will see what happens going forward with him. Tyler Wells, on the other hand, I'm not sure either. He has had shoulder issues since he has been with us, and unfortunately, that can read into a decision to keep a player around or not. He as well has had Tommy John surgery when we first acquired him in a Rule 5 draft. And he has been one of our most reliable pitchers over that time. So definitely do not have any qualms about him not being up to snuff. I mean, I obviously would like him because he has been a consistent pitcher for us, but he has yet to pitch a full season for us as well. So that's another thing that we have to take into consideration going forward. Is he worth, a roster spot if we're only going to get half a year out of him? Good news is we do have the depth to overcome this. We do have Albert Suarez. We do have Cole Irvin, who will, for the foreseeable future, fill in. We also, down in the minors, have Cade Povich, who is on fire. We do have Zimmerman, and we do have a few other pitchers necessarily if we have to dip into that pool. On top of that, we can also make a trade. I mean, the depth with our system allows us to make that trade. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. The trade deadline is not usually until the end of July, beginning of August. So we'll see if Michael Elias works something in the books. You can make trades before then. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to say the least. I know a name that's been floating around Birdland for quite some time for some people is Trevor Bauer. And the guy's actually pitching very well. So we'll see what happens. Do the Orioles reach out and actually bring him aboard amidst everything going on? All charges were dropped. So technically, the accusations were dropped because there was not substantial evidence going forward to prosecute. So Bauer seems to be pitching pretty well where he's at. So it'll be interesting to see. Do the Orioles actually reach out, or do they make a trade? Time will tell, and we get to see what Michael Elias is going to do for the time being. Right now, we got Cole Irvin and Albert Suarez, who is making his start tonight, especially since you already have Burns, Rodriguez, Kyle Bradish. Getting Dean Kramer back will be huge, and that'll allow either Suarez or Irvin to return to a long relief role. I was honestly hoping that Tyler Wells would be able to come in and give us some help during the season at closer to help Kimbrel get through the season properly. Kimbrel looks like he's back on, and that's what I look forward to. So I am sad to hear about John Means and Tyler Wells, but the game goes on, and we will see what happens going forward. As for other news going on this week, you had the Negro Leagues were added to the Major League records and record books. Interesting how receptive everybody has been. I've raised some eyebrows in my group, in the Baltimore Battery group, because I have questions. Everybody's going to have questions. I'm not against it, so I don't want anybody to think that or get on me for what I'm about to say. There's got to be some questions. There definitely has to be questions. You put Josh Gibson up at the top of the career batting average and season batting average. Okay, I can see the season. The career kind of throws me off because based off the amount of games he played, comes out to roughly about 4.5 seasons of baseball. He also only accumulated 601 hits, according to Major League, or 601 hits according to Major League Baseball, and they only credit him with 127 home runs. Now, it's said that he hit a lot more than that, but according to the research that Major League Baseball did, they only credit him with 127. So, the 601 hits, and then you're going to give the guy the overall batting average of all time. You kind of got to raise questions because in order to qualify for rewards during the season, you have to hit certain plateaus to be considered part of the batting average, home runs, all that stuff. You've got to hit certain marks in order to be up there with the league leaders. So if that applies, how does this not apply to the same standards when it comes to that? And once again, like I said, I'm not questioning or I'm not disputing that Negro Leagues need to be identified by baseball standards, Major League Baseball standards. I am not in the least bit. I'm actually glad that they're doing it because there are some wonderful players who are and only got the chance to play in the Negro Leagues, Josh Gibson being one. I actually did a report on him in high school because he was one of my favorite players to read about. But, before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, players like Josh Gibson, Cecil Page, weren't well known, and they led to the future of baseball becoming what it was. And it brings up the question, different times, different eras. So how does that fall into play when you talk about the steroid era, the ball era, the live ball era? There's so many different eras in baseball that constitute different things being accomplished. Should asterisks be put by these intendants? That's a lot of research to go through and a lot of work to do. But how do you do it? I mean, the Hall of Fame is openly not putting Kurt Schilling, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez in, and Barry Bonds due to their so-called involvement with performance-enhancing drugs. What's interesting is human growth hormone was banned by baseball, and human growth hormone is an accelerant that helps build and recover from injuries, which is very similar to what plasma-rich platelet injections do. They help you recover quicker from injuries. So one's accepted and one's not, and one is hanging over the dark cloud of the steroid era because it was undetectable and untraceable. So if you're going to open that Pandora's box, you've got to open all the Pandora's boxes because what's fair is fair, what's right is right. And I've seen some comments that, Major League Baseball players weren't playing the best players in the world at that time, but during that time, the best players in the world were playing Major League Baseball according to the laws, the rules, and the standards that were going around. Was it right? No. But times change. And that's the one thing you can see in the growth of baseball is times have changed. There was a time where Dominican players, Venezuelan players, even, Korean, Japanese, Chinese players were not part of Major League rosters. And when you think about it, and I'm going to get egg all over my face for saying this, but when you think about it, to get a player from the Nippon League, they have to be posted. The team has to be paid, and then there's a negotiating window in order to reach a contract with the player. You're selling product there. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to elaborate on extra wording there because I'm sure people know where I was going with that. But, how do you quantify one versus the other and then discredit one and not the other? Do you know what I mean? But we're not going to continue talking about that because I want to get back to the John Means, Tyler Wells things. Another argument I have going on, and I actually got, I don't want to say an argument, but a back and forth with somebody on X, formerly of Twitter, about this. Um, I am of the belief that the no hitter that John Means had was the door that opened Pandora's box for him. He threw 113 pitches, which was a season high. He only had one other outing that year where he threw over 100 pitches, and that was 110. I lied. One other outing where he reached 110 pitches. He had, if I remember correctly, I think a total of 7 outings where he threw over 100 pitches, usually around 103 to 105. The thing about it is, John Means was never the same after the no. Um, to go back and quote my, I don't even, do you call them tweets anymore? You call them tweets. Anyway, to quote my tweets or X's, whatever you want to call them, as I said, and it's going to be interesting because John Means, after 6 weeks, when he returned, he allowed 9 runs over the next 11 and 2/3 innings. Over the rest of the season, his velocity was down. In July and August, he had ERAs over 5. And 8 of his final 13 starts, he pitched 5 innings or less. Going into 2022, and granted, he did have an off season, but going into 2022, he managed to face a total of 8 batters before he went on the IL and ended up having Tommy John surgery. Means threw over 100 pitches 13 times in 78 career games. It's a total of 16% of his total starts before that Tommy John surgery. Then he only threw 110 pitches in May of 2019. So the 113 was definitely a career high. And yes, the history of pitching a no-hitter is strongly important to many pitchers. But if hindsight's 2020, would we still do it the same way as we did? Would we have allowed him to go out there and finish it, or would we have brought in a reliever? Because then you look at Kyle Bradish the other day, who had 103 pitches at the end of 7 innings. Realistically, he could have gotten through the next 2 innings throwing 20 pitches, so 123 pitches. But we pulled him because of earlier issues this year with his arm. And the reason I bring that up is John Means, the previous 2 seasons, had shoulder injuries that started him either starting late in the season or in the middle of the season having to hit the IL. The no-hitter comes, and John Means was never and has never been the same since then. Now, I am not saying the no surgery. All I'm saying is it almost feels like a door was opened or that the top of the mountain was reached. And after that no-hitter, it's just been a long downhill fall. And it's kind of sad because John Means, there was a time when John Means would take the ball, regardless of our team record, regardless of how well our team was performing. And you could pretty much assure we were going to have a chance to win the game. And that's the hard thing, is to see a player like John Means go out like that, especially after his career with the Baltimore Orioles. He's pitched very well, and he did everything in his power to come back this season to help this team to get to a World Series. That was his intention. And for a while there, it looked like we were going to get it back. Then the elbow acts up again. So, it leads to interesting concepts because when I go back and I look at me growing up, and I mentioned this in the tweet the other day, I grew up watching pitchers strive for 300 innings to 30 35 starts a year. Last year, 5 pitchers innings. The year before that, 9 pitchers pitched eclipsed 200 innings. The days of the 30 35 starts and the 200 or 300 inning pitcher are gone. They're gone. There's stories of Nolan Ryan throwing 275 pitches in a 10 inning game. Nolan Ryan pitched a long time and didn't have any issues with his arm, never had the surgeries in his arm that you see today. medical issues are more prevalent today. And the question comes to a head, is it because we're being too cautious with the pitchers or the players? Is it because we're limiting the amount of pitches they're going to throw, the amount of innings they're going to pitch? And henceforth, the pitchers are going out there and ramping up, throwing harder because of it. These are kind of the questions that you have to ask yourself. Why in 15 to 20 years have we gone from 300 innings the standard for pitchers to achieve to 200 innings, now barely even hitting 200 innings? Tommy John surgery used to be something that was very rarely spoken of. It happened, but it wasn't often. Now it seems like kids in high school are having Tommy John surgery. It's almost like a stepping stone to get to Major League Baseball. Have Tommy John surgery, and you're going to be sure to pitch in the major leagues. Not saying that's exactly what's happening, but it almost appears that way. It almost appears that you have to have the surgery in order to be an effective pitcher. And Verlander at age 39 came back from Tommy John surgery, and he actually was better than he was before. So, there's kind of a few things going on there that makes you wonder and keeps you guessing as to what has changed in baseball over the time frame that has allowed for this to happen. And that's all I got to ask is, the bullpen has become a bigger factor. Tampa Bay a few years ago started rolling out with the opener and then having bullpen games. And it's picked up. We're going into a month where we're going to play 30 over the next 31 days, where having the pitching depth that we had would have been very crucial. Now that pitching depth has been put on a challenge, especially with Dean Kramer on the IL. So, you still have your big three of Burke and Bradish, but you still have two other pitchers you have to throw out there. So the fun begins. What is Mike Elias going to do? Is he going to push for a trade for another pitcher? Is he going to sign another pitcher? Or are we going to go in-house and bring up another pitcher? All these things are up in the air. One part of watching baseball and seeing baseball is we're going to find out what's going to happen. So at this point, I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in. I would not be here without you all, so I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate you listening to me. Please make sure what you think. We're available on YouTube now. You can follow me on Twitter at SRJ Heckman, same as TikTok, Twitter, which is now X, sorry. Baltimore Battery, which is at VB More Battery on X and on TikTok as well. Find me on YouTube. Where we will have this video uploaded. And we'll go from there. So, I want to thank me the opportunity to do this. Without them, I would not be here either. I want to thank, don't forget to head over to the BaltimoreBattery.com and check out all the new articles that have come out this week. We have some great new works out. Make sure you're following Zach Bucklow, who has his first flight podcast, which is about the minor league system. So you want to make sure you catch that as well on Spotify. Make sure you're following, Jared Watson, Justin Sutton, Nick, Jason, all of them. Make sure you give everybody, RJ, make sure you give everybody a follow. But let us know what you're looking for and let us know what you want to see. I want to thank my partner, Dubby Energy Drink, which is a wonderful caffeine-free dietary supplement. It's a great taste. One of the great things being a diabetic is it's not high, also you don't get that jittery feeling coming down off of it. So head over to w.gg. Make sure you use if you're ever in the Maryland, Delaware area and you're looking for mobility equipment, please make cold and peace out until next time. What is going on here?